So, welcome everybody. This is our monthly DevRel meetup. And we have a special thanks to say to one of our founding sponsors, contentful.com, who have been great supporters even from the start. This meetup is virtual, and it's virtual to make it more inclusive. We all enjoy in-person meetups. There are lots of those, but we decided to make this one virtual because that means that people from all over the world, and our speakers today are joining us from Germany and England, can speak, and people from all over the world can attend and enjoy the meetup as well. So thank you for joining us and helping to build this community. And thank you also again to Contentful, who are an API-first composable content platform. Create, manage, and publish content on any digital channel, and they're pretty cool. You should check them out. So you can view the meetup and the discussions without logging in, but if you want to chat, you should log in, and then you can post questions. And our format is usually a 15-20 minute talk, followed by Q&A for about 10 minutes. What this meetup is about, if you're joining us for the first time, is developer relations, the practice of developer relations, learning how to be a developer advocate, and all of us helping each other to become better, dealing with challenges like measuring and showing value to our organizations, and how do we foster our communities and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so just before we start, the other thanks I want to give is to my co-host, Sinead, who really helps makes this happen. Thank you so much. And also to Vito, vi.to, who provide us with a hosting platform. And their CEO, Paul Campbell, is a great supporter as well. Let me just do your intro. Andy is an experienced developer relations professional. Andy Piper, that is, our current speaker. Open source advocate, hardware tinkerer, and social bridge builder based in the UK. He has a background at IBM, VMware, and Twitter, as well as freelance with multiple open source projects and communities. Andy has spoken on community education and technology topics on stages and at events around the globe and virtually, like today. He loves to explain and unpack new technologies and to inspire others to try new things. Follow Andy in the Fediverse on Mastodon, at Andy Piper at Macaw Social. That's macaw.social, where he and Sinead hang out in her new favorite place to share pictures of her cat. And trust me, it's the best discussion going on Mastodon these days. As with Anil, Andy invites you to get your questions and comments in early in the chat, and he'll bring in your question in his talk if he can. And we have bonus info later in his talk on the latest version released from Mastodon last week. Sinead is very excited to hear that. All right, Andy, over to you.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you again for the invitation. And it was a pleasure to meet you in person just a few weeks ago at DevRelCon here in London.
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andy, and I'm based here in the UK. I've been coming to the Dublin DevRel virtual meetup for probably about the last 6 months, and I'm really enjoying it. So tell all your friends about the meetup, because I've really had some great conversations as a result of this. So let's go back to the future. Let's jump in a DeLorean and journey back to about 2007, 16 years ago. I signed up for a little website where you could send an SMS message from your phone. I was desperate at the time to get my hands on a BlackBerry, but my company didn't give me one until a bit later. But you could send an SMS message and it would show up on a website and end up on your profile, and then you could talk to people anywhere in the world, wherever there was phone service. And it started off really small, and people didn't get it for a long time. And it was the middle of the sort of so-called Web 2.0 era, where static websites were really starting to become more interactive, more social. People were beginning to sort of share more of their content online. And as you may have guessed, that was a social network called Twitter. And within a few years of that, I was using my blog, I was writing about all of these other places where I was sharing my content. Some of them still exist and others of them don't. But I was super engaged, really excited. I still have a YouTube channel. I have a Tumblr. I don't post very much there anymore. Seismic has come and gone as a thing. But that cool little SMS-based site really changed my life. I became friends with people around the world. I met new people. I was exposed to new ideas that I just simply would not have encountered previously. And I got two huge job opportunities. Really, my first two. My first named role in DevRel was through being myself on Twitter. People saying, "Hey, we'd love you to come and be our advocate," at the time for something called Cloud Foundry, and then subsequently to work at Twitter. And then it stopped, and that platform went away for me. And if you're on X today, then you're welcome to be there. I deleted all of my accounts for a number of reasons. X is not Twitter, and I did not sign up for X, so I do not use it. But today feels a lot like those mid 2000s all over again, because there's lots of new things happening. So today we're going to talk about this idea of community everywhere. You can see at the bottom of the slide here, on the bottom left, is a short link which will take you to a page which has got notes with links to other things I'll talk about today if you want to follow along, but I'd love you to keep the browser tab open on what we're talking about and the chat. And on the right of the slide at the bottom there, as Richard mentioned, is my Fediverse handle and also my personal site.
Sorry to jump in, Andy. I think your screen share has stopped.
So what do we mean? What do I mean when we talk about community everywhere? Well, I'll come on to that in a moment, but back in February this year, the DevRel community was starting to talk about whether our jobs as connectors, as advocates, as empathizers could be done without Twitter. Brian Rinaldi from the CFE.dev community posted this blog post called Can DevRel Be Done Without Twitter? And well, spoiler alert, I wrote this post, and of course I've now ruined my slides because I clicked too quickly. There we go. I believe it can. And I believe we've been doing it with and without Twitter all along. We've had our own forums and communities for our products as companies. We've asked our users to come to a space that we own and we control, and we can get our messaging out. But ultimately, we've also still been going to Stack Overflow and to GitHub and to where our users and developers are.
Andy,
and since 2007, a load of new things have happened, right? So code, if you have been on in the tech industry since then, has moved from SourceForge to Bitbucket and GitHub and GitLab and Codeberg. So, we coalesce around GitHub, but it's certainly not the only game in town.
Andy,
there's Discourse now that wasn't there in 2007. There's Discord now and Slack now, although there's always been IRC as well. And so a few months ago, Richard Millington, who some of you may know, if you do not know, I will briefly explain. He published this excellent piece. So Richard is the founder of FeverBee. He spoke at DevRelCon in London a few weeks ago. And he's a bit of a personal hero of mine. I was a bit of a fanboy when he spoke at DevRelCon and went up and said, look, I've got your book. I think you're great. When one of my former colleagues left Twitter back in 2014, he gave me Richard's book as my sort of as his leaving gift to me, called Buzzing Communities. He's done a lot of work around community development, and he's done a lot of work around measuring communities. And his point in this post from July is that behaviors have now changed online, and you may have your own site, but actually you find that developers, users generally of a product, will talk about it in lots of different places. And it being the internet, a few weeks later, and this is a bit of an eye test, this particular slide, but again, I've got a link to the post in my notes for you to go read. There was pushback. People started to look at this and see Richard was getting some attention with his buzzword post, and they said, well, hang on a minute. There's community everywhere is not a new thing. We in marketing call it omni-channel marketing. We could talk about going to the customers and being customer focused. And he's right. And I was thinking to myself, well, this is an interesting parallel with what I've been talking about in a post-X community. So I think this pushback actually reinforces the fact that there are a lot of places to be right now. And I would love to encourage you that none of them are called X. Let's also understand that there's going to be some work involved here, and this is a fresh set of opportunities for all of us. And as advocates, developer relations advocates, we should be excited about that. So let's talk about where people are. Where is everyone? Well, it's definitely suboptimal, and I've seen this kind of feeling expressed in a number of places. So this is somebody on Threads, where I have an account, because I have accounts in lots of places, as I'll talk about in a moment, saying the fall of Twitter has sucked, because now we don't have a single place to go to talk to all these people, and I have to go and find where those people that I want to talk to have moved on to. There's work involved here, folks. We're going to have to do it. I read about this a few weeks ago, and I referred to the idea of these current crop of networks being like Pokemon. You've got to catch them all. You can go and read that post for more of a summary and dive into where I'm at and what I'm using. It definitely feels a lot to me like that 2006 to 9, 10 period again. Let's talk about some of those places, and some of them you may not have heard of. So I will be talking about Mastodon in more depth. There's also Blue Sky. There's something called Pebble. It's just been renamed to Pebble. It used to be called T2, and it was called T2 because, hey, guess what? It was going to be the next Twitter, because the people that started it were formerly at Twitter. There's a thing called Post News. There's a thing called Hive, which is mobile only. There's a thing called Co-host. And Meta has launched this thing called Threads, which is basically Instagram without the images, and is going to, in the future, federate. And that's an interesting thing that we will talk about. If you haven't heard, then Reddit had a bit of a moment in the summer and made some policy changes and upset a lot of people. And a lot of people moved to another platform called Lemmy. But we also know, I imagine, that our communities already are in places posting on developer blogs like Dev. They're probably in some kind of discourse community. In fact, if you look at a platform like Glitch, which is a lightweight application environment for prototyping and running small web apps, they use discourse for their community conversations. But they've also got people posting stuff and importing stuff from GitHub. So we live in this multi-channel world. The place I'm most excited about, and if you can see my video, you may see I'm wearing a t-shirt with a number of different names on it, and all of these platforms are Fediverse platforms, and the common thing they have is this idea of a core protocol called ActivityPub, which means that content shared on one platform can be subscribed to and seen on another platform. Now, if you do subscribe to PeerTube, which is a PeerTube account, and PeerTube is similar to YouTube. It lets you share video in the Fediverse. From a platform like PixelFed, which is a photo sharing account, you may not get the same experience, but you can share that content. The Fediverse is a decentralized network of sites and services that enable people to have more ownership of their networks and their data. And I can tell you that I regret that I significantly neglected my personal blog and website after about 2010, 2013, as I just did more and more in lots of other places like Twitter without ever owning that data. And now I don't have anywhere, because that account has gone, to send people to. It would have been much better for me to have saved that data. And as a DevRel person, it would be great if, when I move from one company to another, I still have ownership and access to my data. I've lost access to videos of talks I've given in the past because I haven't had ownership of my data. In fact, immediately before this talk today, I came from a workshop with the Data Transfer Initiative, which is all about how we make data portable between systems. So I strongly encourage everybody to take a look at Fediverse platforms. Now, it's work, but we can focus on the core principles that I believe are important in developer relations. Now, each of these principles, and I've got 3 or 4 to talk through, is really fundamental to how I've done my job in DevRel for the last 15 years. We go to where the people are. When I was at Twitter, I regularly encouraged my colleagues to go answer questions on Stack Overflow and look in Reddit, even though people were being nasty about us, because if we weren't present, we weren't learning from that conversation. Developer relations is about walking with our communities, and whether those conversations are good or bad, we learn from them. Second core principle, do the work. And we're all busy and we all have limited attention spans. But if we don't try new things, then we don't learn and we don't innovate. And I believe that DevRel is or can be or should be the eyes and ears of our organizations where we work. We should be the people going out and engaging and learning from those communities. So we're going to have to make some effort here. And the third core principle is to empathize and engage with people where they are. So I've already said we go and walk with those communities, but actually we become part of those communities and engage with people where they are. Finally, let's just remind ourselves that this is an opportunity, and it can be a good opportunity. It can be a bad opportunity as well, it can be difficult. But ultimately, if people are talking about our products and our stuff and our thing that we are employed to advocate for in different places, that's good, right? More people are hearing about it. Our messaging is being transmitted to different places. There are challenges, and metrics is one of them. I was in the DevRel Slack the other day, and somebody was asking how they can get Common Room to get metrics from Mastodon, and they can't because Mastodon makes it quite difficult. And that's a cultural thing as much as a technology thing. People in the Fediverse have been often othered by the core platforms, the mainstream platforms, and don't necessarily want it to be so easy to find content such that it can be repurposed in difficult ways. So there are some challenges that we need to work through. But there's a really good opportunity here. Thank you. I am here because I love DevRel. I love this community, and I love talking about things that I hope to share with others.